Hello, friends. Miss Natalie here, and today I wanted to show you how to create a simple character for the form and value digital drawing. I am going to start choosing black as a color, and I'm going to be working in a vector layer because I'm going to be laying in some shapes and moving them around. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on this down arrow, this little triangle, and add a vector layer. There we are. And I'm going to start with a circle. Oh, and I got to make sure I have a good size for my pen, which I'm using the basic one brush, always a good brush. And I think 10 is actually a very good size for that. And I'm going to start with an ellipse because I like to make round little guys. That's what I'm going to do. I'm making a little guy. I can use that select shapes tool to pick the circle up and make it maybe a little bit more central. Not a circle, it's an ellipse, but you know what I mean. All right, now not every single part of this character needs to have three-dimensional form. You only need some three-dimensional form. So I'm just going to give this little fella, let's see, I'm going to use the polyline tool to give him a couple of little legs. Remember, you click and then you move and then you double click when you're done. So click and click and double click. All right. I'm going to give him a couple little arms. Whoop. I forgot that I was still in the, oh, well, for pity's sake. All right. Forgot I was still using that polyline. I'm just going to use a single line here. And I'm going to click and drag and click and drag. And I'm going to make a couple of very small spheres, circles really, for his hands. So I'm going to click and hit the shift button. And that's maybe, yeah, that's a good size for a hand. And click and shift. And there's the other hand. And then I can use that to move the circles where I want them to. And he's got a couple little hands. All right, now I'm going to add some facial features. We're going to give him a couple of eyes. You can hit shift, click and shift to make sure they're perfectly round. Yeah, wait, and they could be different sizes, but I think I want them to be more or less the same width apart. There we go. And just to make a little guy cute, I like to keep the mouth kind of in the middle. So we're going to make a line here. And then I'm going to use the Edit Shapes tool to edit this. So it's do I want it to be a smiley face or a grumpy face? I love a grumpy face little guy. Let's do a grumpy face. And we can even move this down a little and grump him up a little by moving on those handles. There we go. We got a grumpy little guy in our vector layer. Oh, one more thing I'm going to do. I'm going to use that poly line one more time. I'm going to give him a little snaggletooth. So there's nothing better than a little guy with a snaggletooth. Okay, and now I've got my line drawing done. I'm going to be wanting to use the fill tool in this later. So I'm going to convert this into a paint layer. And so I'm going to go to, I've got my vector layer selected. I'm going to go over to layer and convert to paint layer. And the last thing I'm going to do with this line drawing is go over to where I have the line drawing. It says a vector layer, but it's actually a paint layer. and I'm going to right click and choose duplicate layer or mask. I'm going to duplicate my layer. Why am I doing this? That way I can work inside this layer here, adding color and other lines and places for shadows and highlights. And I will still have my outline above it. You'll see a little more of how that works in the next video. So now it's your turn to go out and make some art of a little guy.